To solve a quadratic equation by factoring, it first must be in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where the leading coefficient is a, and that helps us decide what kind of method we're going to use to solve. This method is called the x plus grouping, or the x method, or this is an extension of the p's and q's that we did earlier, except the difference is that the leading coefficient a is not 1. That adds a little bit more difficulty, but still not too bad. Instead of trying to figure out how to get these into two different factors, this trinomial into two binomial factors, we're actually going to change this trinomial into 4 terms. Okay, we're going to make the middle term 2 separate terms, and those terms are very specific. So the first term remains, and the last term remains, and then negative 20x will soon be written as the sum of 2 different numbers. So here comes the x, and this is going to help us figure out what our new middle terms are. To figure that out, multiply 3x squared times negative 32. That's negative 96x squared. On the bottom, put negative 20x. Whatever factors you choose have to multiply to get the top of this x. They have to multiply to get negative 96x squared, and they have to add or subtract to get negative 20x. That's where our p's and q's come in. It helps oftentimes to write all the factors of 96 just so you can see them all. I don't have all the factors of 96 memorized, so to write them down can visually help me see what numbers, what factors might work best for negative 96 and negative 20. So here we have a list of all the factors of 96. I see 2 different options, 2 pairs that could possibly work here. Maybe 4 and 24 could get me 20, and maybe 8 and 12 could get me 20. And this is when I need to check, double check, triple check my signs. Whatever multiplies has to give me a negative. The only way to multiply and get a negative as a result is having 1 negative and 1 positive. So 8 and 12 isn't going to work because having one of them negative and 1 positive will not get you to negative 20. However, 4, and we're going to put x because that would give me the x here and here, and 24x, so 4x times 24x gives me that 96, but in order to give me the negative, the bigger one has to be negative. So I'll put negative 24x plus 4x, yes, that's negative 20x, and negative 24x times 4x, yes, that's negative 96x squared. So now I have my new middle term. I'm going to put plus, because this is a positive 4x, minus 24x. And it doesn't actually matter which order you put 4x and negative 24x in, it should still work. Now, now we have 4 terms. Is this second line, is that the exact same thing as this? Yeah, we didn't change it at all. Negative 20x, 4x minus 24x is negative 20x. Nothing has been changed. We're just manipulating the equation in order to be able to group it. Now, factoring by grouping is when you have 4 different terms. We're going to look at the first group. So from 3x squared plus 4x, what is the GCF, the greatest common factor, also known as the opposite of distributing, is what we're going to do. So there's no number that goes into 3 and 4, but x is common. So we'll put x here. And then inside, we will do the opposite of distributing. We'll divide out that x in each of these terms, so it should be 3x plus 4. If you distributed the x back in, you'd get back to this group. Now let's do it for the other group. Negative, if there's a negative, factor out the negative automatically, no matter what. Negative 8 is the greatest common factor between these two. And then backwards distributive property, so negative 8 times something is negative 24x, and that's 3x. Negative 8 times what is negative 32? That would be positive 4. And then you can start to see that, oh wait, these are the same. This binomial is a common factor. It's actually in common with both of these terms. So we're going to write it one time, and we're going to divide each of these terms by this common factor. So you have an x times 3x plus 4. You also have a negative 8 times 3x plus 4. And if you distributed or FOILed or whatever you want to call it, multiply these two binomials, the first step would be getting here, and you would eventually get back there, which is how you know that you did it correctly. This is equal to 0. You are done factoring, but you still need to solve using the zero product property. The zero product property states that, wrong side, if a times b equals 0, then a equals 0 or b equals 0. Make this factor equal to 0, and I'm going to write it over here because I'm running out of room. And this factor equal to 0, x minus 8. So this one's easy, add 8 to both sides, so x equals 8 is one of my solutions. And then subtract 4. You got 2 steps for this one. Divide by 3. And leave it as a fraction, so x equals negative 4 over 3. These are my two solutions. If you wanted to check that, plug them back in for x. Make sure to put parentheses on and check it with a calculator. That is how to do the x plus grouping method of factoring.